Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fashion Open Studio 2022 by Fashion Revolution. I am Samiul Alam, a designer from Bangladesh, currently working at BRAC Arong and doing masters in contemporary fashion at International Fashion Academy of Paris. Today, we are here to have a roundtable discussion about ethical fashion manufacturing, which will be followed by the release of my collection journey video, Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Before I start, I'd like to thank our strategic partner, Good to Great Academy, and streaming partner, the Business Standard and ICE Today for supporting the cause. Our today's subject is the other side, feature of ethical fashion manufacturing. For the roundtable discussion, we have a dream panel today. It's my honor to introduce to our esteemed guests. We have Christine Gent, the Global Community Director of Fashion Revolution, Tamara Abed, the Managing Director of BRAC Enterprise, world's largest NGO, which also owns Arong, the largest fashion and lifestyle brand of Bangladesh. Jean-Baptiste Andreani, the Managing Director of IFA Paris. He's also the CEO of IFA Corporate Management, and Damian. He is a creative director, costume designer, fashion designer based in Paris. He's also the professor of IFA Paris. Welcome. Um, as we know, 9 years ago on this day, we experienced the devastating catastrophe of the fashion industry. The Rana Plaza disaster, where 1,138 factory workers got killed and more than 2,500 people got injured. Thus, Fashion Revolution was born to reform the fashion industry with a focus on the need for greater transparency in the fashion supply chain. Which brings me to Madame Christine. In these 9 years, how much has changed in the clothing manufacturing industry? Where do we stand in terms of ethical fashion, living wage, and work environment for the garment workers?
Thank you. Thank you. So the first thing to say, things have changed, but nothing has changed enough. We have not made enough changes in the fashion industry. So at Fashion Revolution, we believe in three pillars of ways of changing: through industry, through citizens, and through policy change. But there has been small steps in every direction, but none of it enough. So there has been a step towards transparency. Brands are really looking at transparency, but transparency is only the first step towards change. So Fashion Revolution produces the Fashion Transparency Index, but that is not transparency in action. In action, we need that to be transcribed into a change in the ways workers of being lives are being changed in the ground. So there's lots to be happy about. We've got a group of young people today who really are recognize that the need of the planet, we need to change the way we buy clothes. It's fantastic, the change of People Fridays for Future, Extinction Rebellion, really realizing that there needs to be drastic change. But the intersectionality between social and environment still isn't really being grasped by everyone. People really need to know that you can't talk about the environment without talking about social change. So that really is not changing enough. But we have seen some wonderful changes in terms of working conditions. I mean, I think the Bangladesh Accord has been amazing, and we just need to keep the pressure up. We need to keep that pressure up. We don't let Rana Plaza get off the radar, because there has been changes. I think people are really seriously taking at least their tier one supply chain seriously. They realise that that's not off the radar anymore. They have to take responsibility. If a product is being made with their label in their factory, they are taking responsibility for that. But that doesn't mean that the tiers below them are changing. So yes, we have got some changes, but not enough yet.
Thank you, Christine, for the amazing insight. Now, at this point, I would like to go to Madame Tamara. As we know, Arong has an ideal ethical manufacturing infrastructure, and it works for empowering artisans and small medium enterprises. Please tell us about Arong and how Arong created this inspiring business model.
Thank you, Samuel. So Arong was started by BRAC in 1978. You've already introduced BRAC. And the purpose of starting Arong was poverty alleviation of rural women in Bangladesh. So BRAC started working with communities in different parts of Bangladesh and was trying to find livelihood opportunities for women living in their homesteads, and then set up Arong as a brand, and basically started working with different communities of women in different parts of Bangladesh, as well as master craftsmen and artisans who are already involved with crafts. You may know that Bangladesh gained independence as a nation in 1971. And what happened with that is the craft industry in Bangladesh lost its biggest market, which was West Pakistan at the time. And Bangladesh as a country was in shambles, and therefore a lot of the craftsmen did actually lost their market and moved into other professions. And that's when Arong came about and tried to revive and revitalize and find a marketing outlet and a marketing chain for all of these artisans as well as rural women who are involved in crafts. So the idea of Arong didn't start as a business. It started to solve a social problem, and we are the largest social enterprise now of BRAC. The way we work is in two ways. So we have our own production centers where, we have about 14 main production centers, and we work with a hub and spoke model where we
Aisha
connect
Foundation.
them to Abed Foundation, where we then connect to over 700 small sub centers that are set up in villages, and women can come and work in very close to their homes, and do lots of embroideries and things like that, and then they send it to the main center where we process and do the tailoring and all of that. And the other way we work is through micro and small entrepreneurs and master craftsmen, and they are independent producers who supply to our own. Now, the way we've set this up is obviously in our own production centers. We have all kinds of workers, benefits, and things like that that are different from, let's say, the ready-made garment sector. But also, and effluent treatment plants and all of those things. Arong also only works with sustainable materials. So, we work with silks and cottons, and we don't, we hardly ever have any synthetic material at all that we work with. And also, in terms of our compliance, because we have everything from fabric manufacturing to garment manufacturing to retail, so the entire chain, the entire supply chain is also within our control. And we have, so we don't have buyers, but we like to self-govern and be compliant in what we think is important. And therefore, we have a social compliance unit, and we do our own social audits of about 39 parameters. Everything from workers' rights to the electricals in a sort of factory setup, to whether the workers are getting the right wages, fair wages, whether they're being paid on time, the facilities, infrastructure, all of that we audit through an independent department that reports directly outside of the operations management. So that's how we've been building this brand, and I'm very happy to say that we are now Bangladesh's largest fashion and lifestyle retail chain. And we have about 25 sort of large format outlets across Bangladesh, and we also have an e-commerce platform now where we supply to 6 countries so far, and we're adding more countries as we go along.
Great. Thank you, Madam Tamara, for telling us about Arong and how the business, how to show that this kind of business model actually works. So yeah. So now I'd like to go to Monsieur Damian, and you have worked with brands like Chanel. You worked with Jean-Paul Gaultier. You designed costumes for Nicole Kidman, Beyonce. Still working with countless different brands and people. Please tell us how much have the fashion brands embraced the ethical manufacturing guidelines as of today? What are your observations?
Okay, thank you, Sammy. My observations are a little less optimistic than what seems to be the current um, point of view of most people. I mean, all the brands on the outside, on their communications, on their, um, they've all contributed and they've all have jumped onto the sustainability bandwagon, where they, because of public, um, politically, being politically correct, they all have jumped onto this bandwagon, saying that they are moving towards it, or they have a small, they've done some sort of capital collection that is all sustainable. But in the big picture, a lot of it is just a screen to hide that 80% of the business that they do is not sustainable. That goes a lot for a lot of the industry that is low end, medium low end, and then the high end luxury. Because high end luxury, they do say that they're doing it sustainable, but of course, then it's not sustainable in the sense that it is uh okay, high end. It's small quantities. They can do basically whatever they want. It doesn't have to be sustainable in the sense that they're not producing very much of it. So there's no, I'm not saying that they're going to use, toxic things to make what they're doing, but it's not something that is sustainable in the sense that they'll only produce one off and that's it. Of course, the biggest sector um, that has to adhere to this sustainability is medium high end, and they are the ones that are more in tune with making sure that what they use is sustainable, in the sense that these are the these this class group, have they're the ones that they're younger. They're about between, I would say, 30s to 40s. Having children, so they're looking toward the future for them. They're making a better future for their children, and so they are making sure that we're not depleting, using all the planet's resources, making sure that um, the global, what do you call it, climate change is going to be stabilized in a certain way, making sure that the economy is not going to fluctuate and be, a total disaster. They are the most in tune with having savings. They have investments. We've just come out of a global pandemic, so they are also aware that the fragility of the planet, and so this group is the group that is the most uh, aware of what is happening in terms of sustainability, and keep making sure that the world is going to, not kill itself in a certain manner. Then, of course, there is the low end, which is, it's hard to, I don't want to cite names, but you know who they are. Where no matter what you do, the fact that if you're going to produce more than 100,000 pieces of any garment, there's no way that you can be sustainable to have it reach the client at a certain price. And that
Agreed.
goes for all the brands that have to do that. And since these brands are continuing to do that, they're, of course, like, I just think of, just seeing a big Levi's ad where they're all talking about sustainable. And of course, this jean that they have is only sold in maybe 50 stores around the world, where they have 500 stores in the world selling, a thousand of jeans at the same time. But and so I find it's very, it's hypocritical that they say they're doing this and making sure that the planet is going to work, when in the end it's a screen to blind the eyes of the public. So I unless we can get, and also it's also because the person who is buying the lower end t-shirts or whatever they're buying, they life is tough. Life has gotten tougher since the pandemic, and for them, it's a big difference between paying 12 euros for something than paying 50 to 70 euros for something as well. So they don't have this luxury to choose to be ethical. It's either they do it or they don't wear anything, basically. So it's very difficult to 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 you know to force ethical ways on everyone when a lot of the world is still trying to just basically survive. Yes.
True, true, true. It's a paradox. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So on that note, I'd like to go to Monsieur Jean-Baptiste. As we know, IFA is one of the greatest fashion schools, and it's producing finest designers, marketers, and entrepreneurs. So, how IFA is incorporating ethical fashion principles and development skills for the students?
Well, thank you, Samuel. Clearly, we're producing great designers because you're one of them. As to as to the fact that we would be one of the most famous and successful fashion schools in the world, I don't know. And I do like this answer. I don't know because we are always questioning ourselves, and our involvement in sustainability is very recent. We started 3.5 years ago when we launched the Department of Sustainable Fashion and Fashion Tech at the same time. And since then, we are constantly questioning ourselves, but in a good way, to truly better ourselves. And I think that is the purpose of sustainability, because it would be quite unthinkable to think that, brands, schools, corporations can turn things around so fast in a short time span. And so we are looking at, duration of 4 or 5 years to put together plans and progressively improve the way we work. And that's what we're trying to do at IFA Paris. So with the launch of the Sustainable Fashion Department, obviously we created a dedicated bachelor in fashion sustainability, but we also decided to include sustainability as a topic in all the modules of our academic program. So for example, obviously you will find modules on sustainable materials, for instance, in the Bachelor of Fashion Design, but you will also find unexpected topics in the Bachelor of Fashion Marketing, whereby in the finance module, for instance, students will be studying green finance, looking into the EPNL tool of caring, for example, because we believe that we need to teach sustainability at every single level of the supply chain. And so at every possible function as well that you could find in the fashion industry. So that's when it comes to academic programs. And then, of course, what we like to do is to literally mobilize our students around one goal. And this goal very often is illustrated through what we call an industry project, where we partner with brands in order to let the students create sustainable collections or working on innovative business models.
We did that.
Exactly, you did that.
We did. We
So
made prosthetics. Yeah.
exactly, and you were the first group, actually, that started with this sort of program. And I think what you did, and just to explain the listeners and the viewers, Samuel's group was the first group to truly utilize our fashion tech lab in order to create fashionable arm prosthetics that could be printed with a normal 3D printer, and which design would be available on open source. Why did we do that? Because, when you think of a fashion school, you don't necessarily think directly of arm prosthetics. Um, I think it really represents the way we see our contribution to sustainability, because it's not just about optimization of our current resources and the utilization that we do of them, but it's also about thinking of social cohesion, the notions of diversity and inclusivity, reduction of inequalities. So when we think of, in this case, adaptive fashion, we have an entire population, which are disabled customers, that are completely ignored by fashion, and they shouldn't. And we started with this project with your group, Samiul, but last year we also did a project in the same, I would say, kind of perspective, where we worked with Global Brands Group and Fun Group on developing adaptive collections as well that were entirely sustainable, because the materials were sourced through dead stocks of the brands that we were working with. The students relearned to work on traditional weaving looms as well. So I think that's also part of sustainability, encouraging the rebirth of tradition, heritage, and to impart the knowledge of artisans as well. And most recently, in fact, this year, we are working on a connected clothing swap with our bachelor students. And this is the first time they're going to do it. They're going to utilize a technology that is provided by one of our partner startup. Their name is Lablaco, and they're going to hold this clothing swap in an old train station that we have won together with other NGO. We have won it in a public tender from the SNCF, the French Railway Network, that gave us the location for the next 12 years to turn it into a center that is entirely dedicated to sustainability. And one last thing about us, when we decided to launch the Department of Sustainable Fashion, I told you that we went through questioning as well. And this questioning also resulted in us going through an internal transformation to allow us to become a CSR certified school.
Great, great, great. Thank you so much, Monsieur Jean-Baptiste. Now I'd like to go back to Madame Tamara. As Arong has, as we know, Arong has infinite possibilities to make fashion great again and set examples for the world. How do you foresee Arong as a globally inspired ethical fashion brand in the future?
Thank you. Before I answer your question, Samuel, I'd really like to congratulate Jean-Baptiste. It's so inspiring to hear that sustainability is absolutely at the core of IFA Paris.
Thank
When
you.
we sent Samuel from Arong to this institution, I had absolutely no idea that this was the case, and I feel today more than ever that really the institution that you manage and BRAC and Arong are very, very aligned in terms of its values.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So to answer your question, Samuel, so with Arong is, we are starting now to, so we have so far, and Arong is now a 44-year-old brand. And that's mainly, all of the products are made in Bangladesh, but now we are just starting to go outside of our shores, and we want to start working with low-income groups and artisan groups in other developing countries. So we are just, we've just written a funding proposal to start working in some of the other South Asian countries like Myanmar and Nepal and Bhutan and the northeast of India. We would also like, from the retail brand side, to take Arong to, across the globe through our e-commerce platform, and also to communicate much more about what and how we do sort of, the whole chain of apparel manufacturing and craft manufacturing, as well as retail. So we have big plans to go global, and I hope that through knowing and more awareness of our work, that other brands will also be inspired to come forward. I think it is absolutely possible, and after the pandemic, more than ever, I think we all know very well how responsible we all need to be in terms of really protecting and saving the only home we have, which is Earth. And so it's absolutely important for everyone, consumers as well, to educate. We have a responsibility also to educate our consumers about how to make sustainable choices. And we are planning to also work very heavily in that, first in Bangladesh, and then as we move to other shores in other countries as well.
That's really amazing to hear. So at this point, I'd like to bring back Monsieur Damian. Um, as we see, conspicuous consumption is still rising, and consumerism is comparatively growing slow. Not everyone can afford ethically made products, as they're expensive. Also, the factory workers need enough work to survive. So, what is the ideal take for creating a perfectly balanced business model for fashion brands, considering this integrated situation? What are your observations?
Well, like I said earlier, yeah, it's really ethical fashion at the moment is not affordable in the way that everyone thinks it is. For because there's the different the low end, they can't it's not for them as an affordable an expense that they can that they can include in their expenses. Um, how can make it well, first of all, the fact that, for example, EFA and I hope the other schools, because I've left some of the I've left other schools before, but they did not they were not asked on a sustainability, such as while at Parsons, and they had no, sustainability was there, but that was not a core value. That's the Champ Syndical, the French school, and sustainability. I don't think they even mentioned the word once while I was there. I was there for what 7 years, and no one did not once did they mention that word the word sustainability. But the good thing at the moment is that there is um, a vast majority of people who are now going online to buy their things. Because of the pandemic, we spent a lot of time at home, and so in order to do things, everything was bought online. And this is the only area where, because when you go into a shop, you see your T-shirts or you see whatever your dress is that you want to buy, and of course, you look at the label. The label only says, 100% cotton, 100% bio cotton, or recycled polyester, et cetera, et cetera. But only online can you really get the true story behind the transparency behind the whole garment. And I think that is where um, that is where they will make a difference. Where companies who are truly able to vindicate that they are being sustainable and they are doing something not just on the communication side just to get onto public opinion, but actually doing something. For example, there's this I just found out about this wool company called let me see what it's called again. It's called uh, Monteco. And what they do is they recuperate. It's Italian. One of the very good Italian wool and cashmere company, and they you know they reuse wool and cashmere from that they've recycled to remake luxury and wool and cashmere yarns again. And not only just they get the yarn and they even do it by color, so you don't have to use any more dyeing as well. And they still, and it's a very luxury and wool company. So only online would you able to find out about this company and what they do. Other than that, you'd go to Premier Vision and you see all the companies. You go to the ones and you buy your yarns and fabrics as usual. So I think the only way that you can make this work is if there is well, both an online presence. The company has a real uh, you know stronghold in being sustainable and saying that and also communicating on it, and not just saying we are sustainable, the artists or whatever. I mean, uh, the upcoming cruiser fashion shows in Paris. I'm not going to say in Paris because none of them are in Paris. We have all the big brands: Louis Vuitton, Dior, Chanel. They're all doing their cruise collections, and they're showing in other places. So they have taken the entire production, organization, and everything, and showing it in a totally different city, somewhere else in the world, which is for me not sustainable at all. And so even though they say that they are being sustainable, that the first thing is the public opinion. This whole glamour of thing has just it hasn't seemed to have disappeared. And I think because they're following this trend, it's quite disappointing that that it's not that at this level they should be setting examples and saying we're in Paris, we're going to always show in Paris, and not because we're not going to show in LA or we're not going to show in Shanghai or we're not going to show in Dubai. We're going to show in Paris, and everyone should come to see it in Paris or show it online instead of following this trend of delocalization of the show. So, it's a very tricky question to find out how to do it today because um, we can't really we're still in the early stages of trying to figure out how to manipulate in today's society with everything that has gone globally wrong, things that are happening again, and so it's a little by. I think the only way we can continue is to try something, get the information out there transparently, and see if it works, and stick to real principles of doing something in the correct way. That's how I think most companies should try and do it.
Great. Thank you, Monsieur Damian. That was a really great insight. So I'd like to bring back Monsieur Jean-Baptiste. Since today's students are the future professionals, and IFA is an internationally diversified school. IFA students are coming from all over the world and also working in different places around the world. So, what would be your advice for the global fashion students and young professionals to work for a positive change of fashion industry in terms of ethical manufacturing?
Mm. That's a great question, and it's also a very tough question because I tend to think that it's very difficult to give a general advice because, all of our students, including you, Samuel, I mean, you all have your own specificities. So it's a little complicated, but I'm going to try. First of all, I would say um, try to be open to the fact that at times you will work with a material that doesn't necessarily look great, let's say, because we have a lot of students, as you were saying, that are coming from 50 different nationalities. And for them, fashion in Paris is all those luxurious materials and, these very pricey items and beautiful fabrics, when actually you could very well start a collection with what you have in your closet by upcycling or recycling the clothes that you have. So I would say my first advice is be open-minded as to what you can use in terms of materials to create a collection or create a product, because you have so many unconventional ways to do that. Then I would also tell them, keeping in mind that most of our students become entrepreneurs after they graduate, that we are not all destined to become, business owners of brands such as Louis Vuitton, Balenciaga, or Gucci. I mean, that there will be, of course, some people that will get to develop this kind of scale or magnitude in terms of brands. But I would say be perfectly content with a smaller scale enterprise, because the most important is not necessarily generating revenue, but it's to generate meaning. And you can generate a lot of meaning by having a small scale business, working with local artisan, and making sure that the wealth is getting redistributed on a local level as well. So I would say that, that's very important to keep that in mind, because at an age where we hear about startups that are raising money in their first rounds of funding at $20 million, everybody wants to get to that scale. And what I would like to tell our viewers and future students is that it's not the only way. I would say start small, start local, and rather than, being solely focused on creating profit, create meaning. Because in my opinion, sustainability, it's not just a trend, it is a quest for meaning, and it's something that we all need to be aware of, and we all need to be working towards. I hope I answered your question, but yeah, it's a tough question, as I was saying.
No. You said wonderfully. That was really poetic to hear how you said it. Um, so I'd
Yes,
like to ask
I just can I just
Madam.
say that
Yeah,
what Jean-Baptiste said is really true. Is that about the because the industry today is all about profit and making it more and more, and that's why I'm so you know uh, not so keen about what's going on in the industry today, because the business model is about making more and more profit every year, going up, and they don't have this sense of, like you said, doing less and having and sell, instead of making profit, have a meaning to their collection, and that's what it's starting, but it's not enough to make a big enough change in the industry at the moment. And but I think that's what they really need, is to have that change of point of view. We're not here to make profit. We're here to have a meaning and say something. Yeah.
true. Agreed. Thank you. So I'd like to ask Madam Christine, from your experience, what do you see as some of the biggest challenges in the fashion industry is facing to become more ethically fair?
Gosh, challenges. Where do you start? Clothes aren't just about modesty, protection, warmth. Clothes are about creativity, independence, expression, culture. And at Fashion Revolution, we support all of that. But we need to change the model. The model of 6-week turnaround fashion is crippling, and it is not good for the planet, and it's not good for people. So we need to look at circularity. We need to have clothes which have zero impact on the planet. It is possible, but we need to change drastically the models that supports it. There needs to be financial incentives for the right activities, and financial penalties for people for the use of fossil fuels. I mean, if it's got fossil fuels on it, it should have fossil fuel on the label. If it's mixed fibre and is difficult to process, there should be a penalty for the manufacturer for its extended life, its afterlife, after its post-consumer. We need to have more incentive for people to produce locally, to support local production. We need to have more upcycling, recycling. We need to reskill in those, so that we are also able to mend our own clothes, so that we're actually able to use our own skills to change clothing according to its change of use or different use. All these skills are lost. We need to get them back again. And we have an industry which is exploiting people around the world. We can no longer ignore the wages that people are being paid around the world. When I was in Bangladesh one time, we were approached by someone who was researching whether garment workers should be have a supplementary food supplement. No, we need garment workers who are paid a proper local living wage, so they're not having to make choices between buying their kids' school uniform or their next meal. And so little increase in those wages would make relatively little difference to our overall expenditure, but we're just so insensitive to this global situation. So I would invite everybody to join the global campaign for all garment workers everywhere to receive a local living wage. So we also need to look at the intersectionality between social and environment. We can't look at environment without looking at the people, and vice versa. This is absolutely essential. We need to look at the situation of refugees. Refugees in the world, there's 82 million refugees in the world, and the situation's getting worse. And you go to a refugee camp, it's full of women and children. The men are going out there trying to survive, trying to support their families, doing the worst jobs there are. And we need to be really sensitive as to how we engage with this global challenge in the world today. We need more transparency. Fashion Revolution does the Fashion Transparency Index, 250 biggest brands in the world reviewed for their transparency. But transparency isn't the answer in itself. We need more activists keeping these big brands to account to deliver on the issues in which they're being more transparent. And that calls for more fashion revolutionaries. So just more activists in the world, that will help us too. Thank you.
What do you think about the fashion collection Blood, Sweat and Tears, which created by Samiul Alam, which should be me? So I'll start with Jean-Baptiste.
Thank you. Thanks for starting with me. I think it makes me very emotional to think of this collection. It is a tough topic that you've chosen, and the collection that you have created fills my heart with joy, honestly, because I repeat constantly to our students that they need to move away from the stereotypical idea that a great fashion collection is a fashion collection that looks good and that follows the trends of the moment, the zeitgeist, and that's not what you did. I mean, your collection looks beautiful, but you didn't start with a sort of inspiration that was turned inwards to fashion. You chose an inspiration that was a message that you wanted to send, and you wanted people never to forget what happened at the Rana Plaza. You also wanted to send a message that was focusing on sustainability and what people can actually do to change the world. And for all those reasons, I think your collection was absolutely outstanding, and I have to say it was my favorite collection of the batch of students that you were in, simply because you truly understood that fashion is a language, and you expressed yourself beautifully.
Thank you so much. I'm actually overwhelmed right now. So I'd like to ask Damian. You were in the jury panel. You were there, so I'd like to have your opinion about it.
Well, first of all, what it was like Jean-Baptiste said, it was quite an amazing collection, outstanding, and it's funny because I just before having this conference, I was talking about your collection to some of my friends who are here with me, and I showed them. Well, I talked about it, and I showed them your portfolio that you sent me, and even just doing that, I still felt the heart, the heartfelt and the tears came back because it was just so emotional. And we were looking, and so because they're also in fashion, so that we looked at the silhouettes, and they were saying, yeah. I said, you look at the silhouettes before. Well, I remember very well when you first installed into the room, and we went and we looked at the clothes and saying, this is very gorgeous and everything. Beautiful pieces, beautifully well made looks, and then when you start to tell the story and the meaning behind every single piece and the way it was done, I think you saw the entire panel. We were in tears basically because it was just so heartfelt, so I said, still right on point at the moment. It wasn't, we weren't trying to, you weren't trying to try and, get, Bella Hadid or one of the, the supermodels or the influencers to wear it or that kind of thing. It was just trying to send a message by using fashion as your dialogue. And that was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, and that's what we should be more, because of course it's nice to have a celebrity wear your clothes, but the message that fashion for me is also a way of expressing yourself, and you did that beautifully.
Thank you so much. Now I'd like to go. Now I'd like to ask Tamara. Appa. I never had your opinion about it, so yeah, I'd like to take the chance.
Oh, Samuel, what can I say? I mean, I thought your collection was so powerful and so impactful and so beautiful, that it really, really blew me away. I mean, as Jean-Baptiste and Damian said, the way you use fashion as a language, and then also, Samuel, the way you showcased Bangladeshi craft traditions and crafts, and the kind of textures that you had, it really was absolutely outstanding.
Thank you,
Really
Appa. Thank
was.
you so much. Thank you so much. And lastly, I'd like to ask Christine, as she saw the portfolio.
Sammy, what do I think about your clothing?
I just think it's absolutely amazing, beautifully tailored, fantastic. I looked at it and I thought, I would not want to wear that. I would not want to wear it. It's too red, it's too in your face, it's too powerful, a reminder of the terrible tragedy of Rana Plaza. And then I thought about it and I thought, no, I should be wearing it. I, as one of the people on the planet that have contributed to the development of this fashion industry that allowed so many people to die, I should be wearing it. So I feel we all should be going around the world and reminding people of the potential of the damage we do in our own lives when we wear clothes to lives of other people in other countries. So I think your range is brilliant. It's beautiful. And I think we should all be wearing it.
Thank you to our valued guests for joining us for this session. I'm sure a lot of people around the world is watching and learning on the positive change of for fashion. It has been an honor to host this event, and thanks to Madam Christine and Fashion Revolution for selecting me for this Fashion Open Studio of this year. I'd like to thank Madam Tamara for choosing me for BRAC Employee Scholarship and opening Arong's door for creating my graduation collection. Thank you, Monsieur Jean-Baptiste and IFA Paris professors for having me in the school, guiding me
It was a
and
pleasure.
bringing the best out of me. And thank you, Monsieur Damian, for being an amazing mentor and helping me on every little point of my journey. So now
You're welcome.
now we will see the creation journey of the collection video, Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Leave a comment and share the video if you like. Thank you, everyone. Let's learn from our past, implement in the present, and make better world for the people who make our clothes. Good night.
Good night.
Samuel has communicated a powerful story through his concept design Blood, Sweat and Tears for this FOS.
Blood, Sweat and Tears is a wonderfully poetic collection that is addressing a very important message to the rest of the world.
One of the greatest aspects is how these dresses are expressively alive.
This collection reflects everything that we should care about, not only during buying clothes, also while designing as well.
Garments from the collection Blood, Sweat and Tears should be worn on every gala night, of every show, of every film, of every red carpet all around the world.
It's emotional, it's dramatic, it's unconventional.
This is the story of a fashion collection which created a thoughtful impact. Samiul Alam, a designer from Bangladesh working at Arung, the largest local fashion brand of the country. Now he is doing a master's in the International Fashion Academy of Paris with an employee scholarship from the organization. This is the story of his creation, Blood, Sweat and Tears, portraying the dark side of the fashion industry.
The idea of the collection is to show the fashion industry through the perception of a garment factory worker. I felt I must reflect the most important aspect of this industry, so I decided to portray the other side through the language of sustainable fashion.
The collection is completely made out of upcycled materials such as recycled sari, used denim pants, end-of-roll fabrics and factory waste trims and accessories.
The looks of this collection are inspired by the clothing style and the silhouettes of the factory workers and clothes they make. So it basically resembles the world they live in. So it starts with an answer to the fashion revolution slogan, "We make your clothes," to convey the perception of the collection. Then slowly it moves towards the hard slog, their working hours, insane overtime, work injuries, and unhealthy working environment.
He used the Kanta stitch, a traditional Bangladeshi embroidery technique, to compile the looks and express his vision.
It's exquisite how he used Katha stitch in all the new way to make different impression like blood veins, forming shapes, typeface, fringing.
The collection grows on to recollecting their experiences and losses that they carry in their heart every day.
His collection called back to the tragic events of the clothing industry. It depicted the people and clothes getting burned in the Tazreen factory in 2012. The story grows and portrays the biggest catastrophe of the fashion world, the Rana Plaza disaster, where 1,138 factory workers were killed and more than 2,500 got injured.
I tried to render the post-catastrophic visuals of the building, the symbolic interpretation of what we wear. This piece is very special. When the Rana Plaza disaster happened, this picture went viral on the internet. 2 dead workers holding each other on their last moment of life. So I portrayed the picture with left out buttons, accessories, tags, and placed them between black and white in the transaction of 2 worlds.
During the Rana Plaza disaster, there were a lot of posters on the wall and people were carrying photos of their relatives waiting outside the building while the rescue was going on.
This piece evokes the fact that they are going back to work, putting on the apron, but still they're carrying their lost friends and family in their heart. It's true, things are not like before. We have better working environment, transparency is more, things are improving, but there's a long way to go. We cannot have the economic advantage in the price of human life or human rights. So the objective of this collection is to remember the past, implement in the present to build a safe working place and environment for the people who make your clothes.